Hello, Data Storytellers. Today on the show, I have with me Nitin. Nitin is the Senior Director of Global Commercial Insights and Analytics at CSL Baring. Nitin, welcome on the show.
Thanks, Laszlo. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And you will be joining our upcoming masterclass. So we're excited to have you share your story with the other attendees as well. But I was looking forward to this interview because you have a deep background in healthcare. And also on our previous conversation, you shared many cool insights about how you see data-driven transformation, your journey over at CSL. Now, before we jump in, would you mind just giving a quick introduction into what brought you into the world of data analytics and maybe your professional journey up to today?
Sure, I'll keep it sweet and simple. Like everyone can go to my LinkedIn profile and follow my journey. But then, essentially, by training, I'm an insights and information technology engineer. Essentially, somehow landed into healthcare industry because my first job was with pharma, a boutique firm. During those days, 2004ish. 2003-4ish time frame. During that time, a lot of pharma companies were going through transformation from as their assets or big assets like multi-billion-dollar blockbusters were getting off patent. So they were looking at like outsourcing strategies, and that was the time when a lot of outsourcing within pharma industry started happening. And I joined this company called Pharma as a VBA programmer during that time because my computer science background or information technology background allowed me to be that person who can pick up certain aspects from maths and stats and then convert them, program them, and build some models for doing marketing mix or performance reporting or multiple other angles. So that's how journey started. Initially, I was part of a very small group of forecasters. Like the pharma had a forecasting group, and we were supporting 3 or 4 major companies, predominantly Novartis and Merck being the major companies for us. And we were trying to build a forecasting model and certain other tools and capabilities, which could allow marketers like our stakeholders, those who are at the very end of the supply insights chain, to have intuitive, like very user-friendly interfaces to run these analytics rather than learning R's or SAS or whatnot. You can just go there, do some clicks, and then get to your results. So we built those models. From there, I stayed with Pharma for a while. My first major moment came in when Pharma asked me to move to United States to support one of our major clients. I moved here back like almost 12 years ago, 13 years ago, and then from then continued working within market research, data analytics, insights space within pharma or healthcare industry, growing my professional career and learning new skill sets as well in the meanwhile. And then I got an opportunity within IQVIA because by 2012, Pharma got acquired by IQVIA. And once we got entered into IQVIA, we were like shown with the amazing assets of data assets which they had for healthcare industry, because they were back in days were called IMS Health, and they were the pioneer when it comes to healthcare informatics. So when you get in touch with that kind of data and an opportunity to analyze that kind of data, you would feel like I felt that I was a kid literally sitting in a mine of maybe like sugar or whatnot. Like I was just mining out insights from there. I continued my journey with IQVIA for a while, and then it's been almost like 15 years in the industry. So thought of like, what if I can, in consulting side, so what if I can just move towards the other side of the table and join CSL like 5 years ago. And then from last 5 years, I've been with CSL. I started with CSL as a insights and analytics lead for their one particular therapeutic area, CV metabolics. Later on, I was being asked by our chief commercial officer to build a forecasting and data analytics capability within CSL, or a center of excellence within commercial. I did that for a year or so. And then from last 3 years, I have been into this current role with CSL, where I lead 4 functions, 4 various aspects of 4 different aspects of analytics: forecasting and decision analytics, competitive intelligence, market research, and commercial data strategy and reporting.
Got it. And then over your career, and it can be in part your journey at CSL, but even before, what were the major challenges for you as a professional? You mentioned building different skill sets. I'm hearing different organizational settings. What do you think were your key challenges as you were growing as a professional?
So one of the key challenge way early I felt was that I was very disconnected from pharma, correct? Like because I was an insights professional or an analytics professional, more so in computer science, statistician, and so on and so forth. And I feel like that's one of the biggest challenge you need to overcome, which is you need to understand the pain of your stakeholder, the direct stakeholder, which is within pharma, it would be predominantly marketing and sales professionals from a commercial side. And I had no clue. So that was one of the major challenge. I gradually picked up those as I was starting to learn more about how pharma supply chain works, how biotech supply chain works, how the company works, what are the key components of this company. Essentially, like when you look at any pharma company, you would look at, or biotech company, you look at three key, let's say, pillars for that company. One is, and it's same for every other company as well. You need to find something. So our R&D group would be that, where we will find something awesome, which works for our patients. Then once you find that, you need to then find a way to manufacture it properly and at a large scale as well as the scale increases. And then the third aspect, so that's your second pillar, manufacturing. And then the third aspect is once you have a product and as well as you have the product to sell, you now need to sell it. So that's your commercial organization. So those are the three key functions. And then there are a plethora of different functions which you work with or interact with. So understanding of how these three functions work, how a product is being built or made, or let's say innovation comes in within healthcare industry was another aspect. And then the third bigger or one of the another additional challenge for me was understanding and learning that healthcare industry is not same across the globe. It varies by regions, it varies by countries, and learning those nuances also was another aspect. So as an analytics professional, transitioning from data analyst to a business analyst was a big challenge. And once that was done, I was into myself, and then the growth started coming through.
So this is super interesting. You mentioned these three areas. So one would be thinking of something awesome, finding something great. That's the research and development phase. And then you got to manufacture it. You got to actually build the thing. And the third pillar is you got to get it to the end user. You got to get them bought into the idea. You got to get them excited. You got to get them to adopt it ultimately. So how does that map onto your job as a senior analytics professional? Where you're trying to, inside the company, basically you're running a startup, or not a startup, but maybe an already established little brand where you're building stuff. You got to get it in front of people. So what do you think, first of all, when we look at this R&D phase, when building different solutions, for you, what did you see as the most important aspects of building the right solutions to the right people at the right time as a data analytics professional within your company?
So the way we support our R&D team is essentially finding out what the unmet needs are and what actually our customers are looking for, or ultimately our end customers are patients, but then physicians, we sell to our patients via physicians, correct? Ultimately, we sell to physicians, the concept. So understanding their unmet needs is number one. Number two is this unmet need is where exactly this unmet need is high in various segments of your patient groups. So that's the second aspect of it. Once you know that, then you start learning about what competition is doing. Like you want to keep an eye on where competition is. If you are building an asset which is a me too, doesn't help selling, because then you are competing with somebody else who has exactly the same attributes or properties, and then it becomes hard to sell. And then you are usually splitting the market or splitting your profits, correct? So finding that niche and differentiating yourself from competition is also an important aspect. So we then fund our R&D team with this information so that they can build an asset which is not only something which has its own niche, but is easily marketable in future as we grow, as we get it into real life.
And when you're communicating with your R&D team, and you're trying to give them these insights, are they really receptive? What is the culture within the R&D team? Because I know that this can be different in the commercial team, the manufacturing team, the R&D. Are they hungry for insights? Are they seeking you guys out when you're trying to feed them the right information? What do you see as the bottlenecks, if there's any?
I think there is definitely different perspectives. So that you need to start with, correct? And one of the key traits of any professional is to understand and value all the perspectives, correct? So when we are coming back with the insights, what we do is we try to make sure that they understand that we are setting our emotion aside. And we are taking decisions which are good for the entire organization, correct? So that kind of culture is being at least built in CSL. So I'm lucky to be part of a culture where that's being like supported by a senior leadership, as well as like all of us, like all three organizations sit together and take very good judgmental calls or decisions based on facts and figures, like and taking the emotion out of that. So that's one area where I feel lucky, especially when coming in and working for CSL. We had that culture getting there. And with last, let's say 4 or 5 years I've been with CSL, it kept on improving. So that's one aspect. And once you set emotions aside and bring everyone on the board, everyone starts building trust with each other, correct? And that then ends up with some good decisions, which helps the company.
This is a good question. So you mentioned trust, and this always comes up, up during these conversations. What do you say is the key to build trust with your stakeholders within the business? What were your best practices in making sure that they understand what you can provide them through data? Like, how did you build these relationships?
So first is data or insight is a fact, correct? Like so you bring them those facts, but you also, when you're sharing insights, you also like to bring them in along with those insights, the opportunities or risk of taking any decision. If you help them understand those, and once you start taking these insights to them along with those aspects, those two aspects, it becomes way easier for them to accept your role in the organization, and as well as they start looking at you as more of a trusted partner, because you are not just trying to find, like, let's say landmines in your in front of them, or bringing landmines in front of them. You are trying to find those landmines and showing them those landmines, and then preparing them that if you step there is a disaster. Let me help you find another way so that you can navigate that and then get to another. And learning those at right time always helps. So that always helps in building trust with the teams. So that's one angle. The other aspect is timeliness of information, correct? Because a lot of times you lose trust when you are bringing something which already happened, and you are not coming with like forward-looking thinking. And when you bring those forward-looking perspective to them, they start again realizing or building like they start inclining towards you for any sort of insight streams. So that's the other aspect which I have found very, very helpful for my team and for myself as I was growing, building trust within these three organizations.
What you mentioned about becoming a trusted advisor. So these are such good points. With present them with the opportunity and the risk, and also the timeliness of information to be forward-looking. But why? Like why is this the case? Think about it. It all boils down to human psychology, right? Because people are not interested in things that, first of all, can provide value to them, or at least that they don't pose a risk that they should avoid in the future. So by positioning yourself as a data analytics leader properly and accentuating those things, like actually putting an emphasis on the things that might bring value to them in the future or might pose a danger, and then also really focusing on things that you can prescribe to them, this way they see you in a different light, they see you in a different way. So you move from being, I don't know, like an IT person who's just, running random numbers, to someone who can actually provide value to them, right? And that was always key. So what do you think, because always a question of leadership comes up in this. So you are presenting these insights from a position of leadership, at least that's what you want to do. So as a senior person now your job is not about actually working with coding. You're not necessarily really running the numbers directly, but you are holding the vision for the data analytics team in the company. So in that position of leadership, what do you think are the best qualities that data analytics professionals should exercise or should work on improving in to make sure that your insights and your advice is being received well, because you're speaking from a position of authority?
Sure. I mean, first thing first, empathy plays a big role.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with pandemic, we learned that empathy plays a way better role as being a leader than anything else. Like earlier, empathy used to be looked like as a vulnerable capability of or vulnerable leadership quality. But then right now, it plays a huge role. And as someone who has been a data analyst and coming with those technical qualities, it also always helps because you can put yourself on their shoes as you are building teams and as you are passing your vision to your team. So that's one aspect. Vision also plays a huge role. You need to make sure that you have a crystal clear vision where your team or your organization is going. What are your priorities? Where you will focus on, how you will build a team of amazing data scientists gradually growing into a role of a business scientist or a business strategist, because I always see that as a journey and I translate my journey to for my team members. Because if you provide that vision to them, that you start as a data scientist or data analyst, but then ultimately you need to become a business analyst to earn that trust within your stakeholders, is always a key. One other aspect from transformation perspective is cultural change. And you don't want to build things which nobody uses. You want to build things which are easy to use, and you don't want everyone in the organization to be R proficient or Python proficient. Uh, they should still be analysts. They should still be. You should still increase the literacy level in the entire organization. I'm not saying that literacy level should be at our side, but then you need to make sure that you provide tools and capabilities which make their life easier when they are seeking for insights. So that's the second aspect of it. Uh, Third key aspect is you need to build short-term goals and a roadmap to your vision. You can't just plant a vision and then just storm towards it. You need to find those smaller low-hanging fruits and low-hanging wins, which you can pick up early, and then start showing that those wins or sharing those wins with the not only your own organization but with the leadership, so that they can see the value. And once they see the value, they start investing in your vision. So that's the third aspect of it, which is how you attract investment in your vision. Because you can paint a vision, you can have a team behind it, but if there is no investment, you can't get there as well. So you need to have those three pillars.
I would love to find out about your best practices in sharing those stories then with the organization in a powerful way. But before we get there, so this whole idea of identifying short-term goals and going for the low-hanging fruits always comes up. So what are your best practices in that? How do you properly identify the right short-term goals? And then how do you make sure that you bring them to success so that you can then invest the whole achievement into future growth? I don't know if the question makes sense, but how do you do that? Can you just walk me through your process? You don't need to go too granular, but maybe just give a little bit of an insight into that.
From a high level perspective, it's ROI process, correct? Like you need to find out the task which gives you high ROIs in a shortest time period. And the way to look at it is, once you build that roadmap and you have identified those sub segments, you essentially try to analyze like how much effort is going behind it, what is the end goal or end value which the organization is ultimately bringing in with that particular subsegment, and then you start prioritizing them. Now, always you have to also look at dependencies as well, correct? Like you can't build an amazing data visualization engine and then have no data behind it, because that will be useless, correct? So you need to again then stack them in a way. So first is to get the ROI calculated. Second is get the timelines done. And then the third step is look at the dependencies and then start putting them into a roadmap. And that's how I do it. I don't know whether that's the best practice, but it has worked at least pretty well in last 3-4 years as I was changing things at CSL.
And then once you have that, so once you got some of those wins, then how do you make sure that you leverage those through storytelling? So when you share the good news with the organization, when you evangelize analytics, what did you identify? What have you identified over the years as being good ways to share the stories, or maybe some pitfalls in that?
Yep. I mean, one good way which I've kept on sharing with my team as well, and this is the first time I'm sharing here as well, is that when somebody approaches to me or to my team for a question, they have 1 or 2 questions, correct? And that's how your analytics project starts. When you get into the data and start analyzing and looking at the trends, what you find is there is another insight or another question coming. You need to start looking for those another next question once you share your insight, because there is always another question. So if you can predict the next question, that always helps a lot. So that's one aspect of it. So it helped me a lot. It helped my team a lot as we were preparing for sharing those aha moments, because many times when you are sharing these aha moments and when you are ready for that next question in a meeting, it again starts building trust, because that other person knows that you are not only thinking and not only following the lead, you are now getting to the next level. You are getting to understand their main pain points, and not just our robots who are just executing the question which is being asked.
Okay, no, that's amazing. So again, you position yourself in a place of leadership and authority, and that's how you get people to, first of all, see data analytics as something that provides forward-looking value, right? But also establishes that trust. So that's amazing. And then when we think about storytelling, so you talked about upskilling your team or building the right capabilities within the team as well, and making them graduate from being just data analysts into business analysts. So what were the main challenges for you? What do you see, maybe even in the entire industry, the key challenges in making sure that your team has that storytelling mindset and they have the storytelling capabilities?
So first thing first is building the team itself is a big challenge right now in the industry. Like data science and analytics, insights analytics, especially in healthcare space, is pretty new. Like first of all, healthcare industry is always lagging behind all the other industries, or when it comes to acceptance of insights and analytics. Like we are getting there, but then we always wait for fintech or other industries to pick up any new technologies or whatnot and then get there. Now, you just don't need an analytics professional to execute a vision. You also need folks who can bridge the gap between that analytics professional and the final stakeholders. So be it a scientist in R&D space versus be a marketer who is trying to build 5 key messages for selling its product, their product. So talking to their own language, translating, having those translators who can translate what you learned in data into their own language, which they can easily understand and then use into their decision making. Day-to-day decision making is key. Now, other aspect is as a storyteller, when you are building this story, translation to their language is one aspect, but then connecting the dots is another. Predicting the next question was another aspect, which I was talking to you about. And then ultimately, when you are relaying the story, you need to understand the essence of the story. Like, what are you telling them? If it's a negative news versus a positive news, there is a completely different story. You can build a completely different story around those, and you need to understand the gist of that and then communicate it back. So if it's a negative news, you need to come back with them, not only with what's wrong, but also like what are the ways to correct it and what it takes to get it corrected. And then whereas if it's a positive news, when you are sharing that story, you also bring them along with it, that this is amazing, and here are 3 other ways to accelerate it, or here are 2 other ways where we have done amazing, but there are bottlenecks coming. So when you build the story which which the other person who is on the receiving end feels that they are talking to me, they are sharing my pain, and then they are helping me get to my goals or my own objectives. It becomes way easier to then start passing along your insights.
Absolutely, and this is why we've been seeing this huge gap in the skill sets of data professionals, because basically universities are churning out now all these highly qualified data analysts and data scientists even, and they're super expensive. They're really hard to bring on board. They cost a lot as well. They could bring so much value, right? But that's where we usually find the points of friction, that the lack of ability to communicate with the business just really keeps all this value and its potential unlocked, right?
It is right. And then frankly speaking, although it's a challenge, it also every challenge poses an opportunity as well to correct as a leader. So what I see is you just need to make some tweaks to your operating model. If you can tweak your operating model in a way that you can bring in partners in the picture, you can bring in these new analytic professionals like universities are throwing out, very naive, not understand the business, but at least understand the way you do analytics with new tools and techniques, and then combine it with some folks who have experience and get there, who knows and help translate what you have learned into business. That's the struggle. That's what we need to figure out. And I am right now at CSL is building on that aspect, which is working with our amazing colleagues within our information and technology group, and as well as within the business, and building that flow of how you can bring in new professionals, analytic professionals, get them there to learn for a while, contribute to us as well, because if we are investing in them, we are also looking for their contribution or how they are adding value to us. In a sense, as a data analyst or data science professional, and then gradually they will start learning the lingo, the jargons of the industry, and so on and so forth. And you find a niche for them and start building their career within the three verticals which I was talking about in a biotech space, like be it in R&D or in manufacturing or in commercial side. Okay. So it's just tweaking that operating model. Like I feel like there are certain ways we can tweak that and get going.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's actually a great segue into my final question as well. And you already started talking about maybe what you're working on at CSL, but maybe you can share your ideas on where the industry is going. What are you most excited about now in data analytics? And then this can be connected to what you guys are working on now over at CSL as well, if you want to share a few words about that.
Sure. I mean, the first thing is where industries today is amazing, like it is super exciting. Like when I look at data technology and ultimately converting data and using technology into insights, which can be used, the kind of tools and techniques which are available, technology which is available right now in front of these data scientists or data professionals is amazing. So the opportunity now is how you can bring them in a cost-effective manner, so that it doesn't become, because always data and analytics professionals are looked under the P&L in the second phase of the P&L. They are not generating income. We are not an income generating group. We are most of the time a cost to the business. But then there is a way to present back to business that even though there is a cost in investing in analytics, there is always a top line impact on it as well. So how you can bring data technology which helps you take cost out of the system and then bring value to the organization is something which right now I'm trying to do at CSL, and I'm pretty sure all the other data analytics leaders across the industry are working on.
Finally extracting that real value from data and analytics, because we all know, I mean, it's being thrown around a lot, and we throw it around a lot too, that the new decade, the decade of data is upon us, the 2020s, right? And everything seems to be falling into place. And this is this typical situation when you will have like so many winners, but also there will be people who get left behind. And then how do you make sure that you end up in the right group? And that's what we're all about. Thank you, Nitin, for your insights. This was fascinating and really interesting. interesting. And we're actually excited to work with you on your data story because you're attending our masterclass coming up. And we will find a good story in your career so you can share some of those insights with our members as well within the platform.
Definitely, Laszlo. I'm looking forward to that masterclass as well, and then look forward for future collaborations as well.
Amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.